And I think that's really the question, whether or not this is a negotiating tactic. As you mentioned, Witkoff is heading to Oman on Sunday for the sixth round of negotiations with Iranian officials, both direct and indirect. And also tomorrow on Friday, Witkoff will meet with Israeli officials so that Israeli officials can talk about their concerns with regards to the Iranian nuclear program. And one would think it's also about a potential attack. Now, whether or not that attack actually takes place, I think remains to be seen. Because for sure, Trump does not want a never-ending war. The issue is that Netanyahu does. It protects him politically, and surely there are fears in Israel of any kind of Iranian nuclear activity. But the question again, and I think I mentioned this the last time I was on the program, is on enrichment. Israel does not want Iran to be able to enrich, and Iran sees it as an issue of sovereignty that they can.
Mm-hmm. Well, so we were just looking at images of Steve Witkoff, who is still planning to attend the negotiations. He certainly knows this, Natasha. Is he capable of walking Iran back from that line? Or have we, in fact, found ourselves at a standoff here?
Well, what's interesting is just yesterday he said that Iran can't enrich uranium. And the U.S. has been back and forth on this, including President Trump. It's unclear if they understand the details of uranium enrichment and a nuclear program for Iran. And I suspect that they're getting a lot of their advice from Israel. Now, the big question is if they are willing to go along with an Israeli attack, because certainly a coordinated U.S.-Israeli attack on Iranian nuclear facilities would be more profound than Israel going it alone, so to speak. But they would have to at least get the green light. Obviously, Witkoff knows all of this. So potentially we're seeing the evacuation of personnel. We're seeing a lot of this bluster as a means to sort of up the ante prior to these negotiations to really push Iran to the edge. It's still totally well accepted.
Seems like a lot of trouble to be moving all these people to just put on a show. But Natasha, we do have and a really important piece of news here that Steve Witkoff will have with him at the table. This is the hook the administration, I guess, could lean on if, in fact, an attack moved forward here. The IAEA declaring Thursday Iran is not complying with nuclear non-proliferation obligations, the first time the UN's watchdog has passed a resolution against the country in 20 years. What did you think when you saw that headline?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because, again, you said it's unprecedented. It is unprecedented, and it shows that the U.S. is working with the E3 and with the IAEA on really putting the pressure on Iran to move forward with this. So, I mean, we could be hopeful. But again, last year we saw something like 170 Iranian proxy attacks on U.S. assets in the region. So very, very scary times. I think we'll see a lot of tensions, especially in some of these other countries like Iraq, where there are softer targets as well. But the IAEA can't do much, but it is another negotiating tactic, I think.
Well, you make an interesting point here about U.S. involvement, because it does seem that Israel would need some help based on some of the reporting that we've done here. You consider the use of bunker busters, air defenses, refueling. How far would the U.S. go in taking part here?
I mean, I think that's the million-dollar question. It's unclear if the U.S. would even be public about coordination with Israel. I think most people would agree that they would be green-lighted, and in order to do the attack, it would be quite brazen for Israel to go it alone. But judging by the statements of Witkoff and of Trump in recent days, it looks like they are very publicly giving the green light, which is, again, why they're evacuating personnel. But I would just say one more thing for your listeners. An attack on an Iranian nuclear facility has happened before. But Iran just goes back to enriching uranium at another level and accelerates potentially. So we could see that again. And, quite frankly, we've been talking about rising tensions in the Middle East quite a bit for 2 years, and it's unclear where this ends. But hopefully it will come to some kind of de-escalation by next week, because I think everyone is on the edge of their seats at this moment in the region.
Israel certainly believes it's in the position of power here, right, Natasha? As we've discussed, there are a couple of reasons why we've found ourselves at this moment, and a lot of it has to do with the lack of air defenses right now that Iran has following the most recent back and forth with Israel, but also an emboldened Benjamin Netanyahu following some of the strife that we've seen in the region here. The idea as well that Iran would respond with hundreds of ballistic missiles, as I read in this story in the New York Times, is being laughed at by Israel because last time they tried that, most of them were knocked down, Natasha. Does Israel not have the moment that it was looking for?
Iran is in a very vulnerable position, as you point out. There was many different Israeli attacks on Iran and Iranian proxies last year that severely degraded Iran, including Hezbollah, which Iran uses to essentially launch attacks onto Israel and neighboring Lebanon. It doesn't really have that as much anymore, and certainly not Iran and Syria. And so Iran is in a very, very vulnerable position. That said, again, Iran doesn't go to war toe to toe with the U.S. or Israel. It sort of negotiates itself in the weeds of these various countries, like Iraq. And I would have you know that the 170 attacks also last year, Iranian attacks, very few casualties of U.S. airmen, of U.S. servicemen. And so, I mean, it's weak attacks, but it does, up the ante considerably, and it makes it much, much harder for the U.S. to have a
Yeah.
presence in the Middle East as well.